DC Day 3.
Let's go.
Hey, I just got back from Ford's Theater. Day 2 started off late, and that's not like me at all. I'm normally always on time, more early, but I'm not really used to this time change, so I definitely had a hard time sleeping last night. I woke up, tried to make some breakfast, but the electric stove was a little slow, so I kind of just chugged one of my cookies and cream protein yogurt. It's really good. I believe it's at 20 grams of protein. It's by Chobani. Really good. Anyways, got ready and started power walking my way to Ford's Theater. Google Map told me I think it was 9-minute walk, and it actually took me 15. And I was moving. I was really trying to get there on time. But as soon as I arrived, luckily the lady let me in, and it was a self-guided tour. And there's a lot of information on the assassination of Lincoln and the events leading up to it. And there's a nice little movie room there, so to kind of give a history on Lincoln and I believe it was Frederick Douglass.
Once a staff member let me in, I stepped into Ford's Theater Museum, which walks visitors through the events leading up to President Abraham Lincoln's assassination. The exhibits explain what was happening during Abraham Lincoln's presidency. They cover slavery and how Lincoln wanted to abolish it, talked about his family and life during that time, and eventually led up to the events surrounding his death. There was also a small movie room with a quote that read, "We cannot escape history." Inside a short film explained the relationship between Frederick Douglass, a famous abolitionist, and Abraham Lincoln and how they worked together in the fight to end slavery. Another section focuses on John Wilkes Booth, the actor who assassinated Lincoln, and explains how the events of that night unfolded. After Lincoln was shot, he was carried across the street to a boarding house where doctors tried to save him. A pillow was placed under his head while he was bleeding as they attempted to treat him. After moving through the museum exhibits, the path leads down a hallway toward the theater itself. There, you climb 51 steps exactly. At the top of those stairs, you enter Ford's Theater. From the balcony seating area, you can see the presidential box where Abraham Lincoln was sitting during the performance on April 14th, 1865. The balcony right there is where John Wilkes Booth shot President Lincoln before jumping down to the stage and escaping.
It was still a pretty interesting trip. Afterwards, I took an Uber back to my room, and my driver made a U-turn in a one-way. That was a little scary because cars were coming right at us. But I'm back here now, and I have a few hours to go before the Capitol tour. So until then, let's go eat some breakfast now.
Later, after leaving Ford's Theater and heading back toward my room, something unexpected happened. The street suddenly filled with police vehicles and sirens, and a presidential motorcade drove by. For a second, I thought, did I just see the 47th President of the United States drive by? Later, I made my way over to the United States Capitol. When I arrived, I took a moment to admire the outside of the building before heading through security, which honestly felt a lot like going through TSA at the airport. And somehow I got lucky. My tour time had been moved up, and I ended up first in line waiting with the next group. One of the first rooms we visited was the old Supreme Court chamber, where the Supreme Court once met before moving their current building. Inside the Capitol, the architecture is incredible. Marble is everywhere, massive ceilings, and detailed carvings. Then we entered the Rotunda, the large circular center of the Capitol. If you look up at the top of the dome, you can see the painting, The Apotheosis of Washington, created in 1865 by Constantino Brumidi. It shows George Washington surrounded by figures representing liberty and victory. Another unique part of the Capitol is the National Statuary Hall collection. Each U.S. state is allowed to send 2 statues honoring notable people from their history. After the tour finished, I rode the escalators down and headed back outside. As I passed the Supreme Court building, I asked one of the officers if he could take my photo. He said he could only be in the photo, but apparently taking an arrest photo was not an option, so that idea didn't work. But the day wasn't over yet. One of the things I set out to do on this trip was to try foods from different cultures around the world. And my next stop was taking me to Africa. Well, right here in Washington, D.C., of course. From there, I took an Uber to the restaurant called The Continent DC. It's known for serving West African cuisine. When I walked inside, the walls were covered with African artwork, and somehow I ended up being the first customer there. I ordered the traditional fufu with egusi soup, a popular West African dish, especially in Nigeria.
This is the egusi soup. I've never had it. Let's see. It's African.
Africa is a continent made up of many different countries, and this meal represents just one of the many cultures and cuisines from that region. The egusi soup is a thick stew made from ground melon seeds, and the fufu is used to scoop it up. And yes, of course, you eat it with your hands. And that was day 3 in Washington, D.C.